So thank you all for joining us for considering the grad school Let's Talk Funding workshop. Presenting for us today will be Christy Correa Davis, Graduate Assistant and Fellowship Program Coordinator for the Grad College.
Yeah, no, thank you. And thank you everyone for joining today for my presentation on funding your graduate degree through a graduate assistantship. As Jay stated, my name is Christy Correa Davis. I'm one of the GA and Fellowship Program Coordinators here at the Grad College. And so we'll go ahead and get started. I am that person that does like to be interrupted if you have a question, because I know sometimes if we wait until the end, we might forget, or, if you want to drop it in the chat, feel free, but you can definitely interrupt me in the middle. I don't mind that at all. Okay, great. Can we go next slide, please, Jay? And then I'll also be including, I shared my slides with the Grad Academy. So if you do want a copy of this, you can request it at the end. But this is just my contact information if you all have any other questions after my presentation. Next slide, please. Okay, so some of the session objectives that we'll be touching on today is just important financial decisions when considering grad school, just becoming familiar with campus financial resources and what we have available, and then just learning about the different financial aid, loans, grants, and scholarships and graduate assistantships that we have available here at the Grad College. So these are the different areas that we'll be touching on today. Next, please. So just an idea to get your funding, your graduate degree overview. Just important things that we're going to touch on is obviously your FAFSA. Now, if you're applying for graduate school, then you know how important the FAFSA form is. Just different funding possibilities. Primarily, this presentation is going to focus on our graduate assistantship program. I will touch a little bit on our scholarships and fellowships. However, if you all want a more in-depth knowledge of what that looks like, you can also set up a meeting with me individually, and I can always go over what that entails specifically within the graduate college. And then just some things to consider, and I'll also be providing some resources at the end for you all. Next, please. Okay, so before we even get into anything specific, I'm going to just let everybody know how getting your FAFSA submitted on time is very important. Specifically here within the graduate college, we cannot award any scholarship or fellowship if you do not have a FAFSA on file. So it's just for everybody to know, if you are an incoming or current graduate student, the priority deadline for the FAFSA form is April 15th of this year. So just wanted to throw that out there for everyone. Last semester, there was some delays with getting the FAFSA form open, just because they were creating a new beta version that they had to roll out. They made some new improvements to the site. It makes it a lot easier to apply and link your tax information on there. So I do recommend for everybody to go in and make sure that they submitted their FAFSA, and making sure that they also received an email from UNLV letting you all know that they have received it and it's processing through financial aid. Next, please. Okay, so I kind of touched on this a little earlier on just the different funding types, but for those that aren't aware, there are also payment plans available that you can enroll in through UNLV cashiering. So let's say you had a tuition balance that you were unable to pay for fully. You do have the option to enroll in a payment plan. They do charge you a fee. Sometimes it's like from $25 to $45. And you are also able to select how long the payment plan is going to go about, if it's like a couple of months or like a smaller amount of payment, or not that many months and a bigger amount of payment. So it's always important to check, and always check before the semester begins, because I know after a certain amount of time you can get charged a late deferred like payment plan fee. So I always recommend to everybody to look ahead of time before enrolling. Next slide. So the first thing is, for those that you are not aware, we do have a graduate assistantship program throughout the university. And what is a GA essentially is a part-time job that you have on campus that you work up to 20 hours a week. A lot of students like to get their GA-ship within the program that they're studying in. Others can get them in different departments across campus. And so basically what it is we have three different forms of graduate assistantships. We have administrative administrative GAs, we have research, and we also have teaching. And they're exactly what it sounds like. So teaching GAs teach sometimes undergraduate level classes, like any COLA 100 classes. Research GAs are hired primarily by professors that are funding them through a grant that they are working on, and they're helping them with like research projects, collecting data, helping run labs. And then we also have our administrative GAs, which Jay is a administrative GA. He basically helps the Grad Academy with any logistical things, whether that is answering the phones, helping with event setup. Anything related to primarily like office work is what an administrative GA would be doing. And so that is an option that we have available for funding. We also have our scholarships and fellowships. And so within the graduate college, we have our own program that we offer. Our applications open on October 1st and close December 1st of every year. So, for example, this year, when the application opens on October 1st, you can go ahead and apply until December, and then we award for the following year. So applications from 2025 will then be evaluated into the year 2026, and then they are to be awarded for the 2026-2027 year, academic year. So if you applied for a summer scholarship, you would get it in summer of 2026. And then if you get an award that's for fall, spring, then you could get it for fall 2026 and then spring 2027. So that's always something to consider is our process is a little more lengthy because we do have an awards committee that has to review over 800 applications. And so we're doing that all throughout winter break and everybody's meeting to rate your application. So that is something to consider. It's not like immediate funding that you may qualify for. So I always suggest to students that you check other departments as well to see if there's any like internal scholarships or fellowships available through them. And then one thing to know is about within the graduate college, we have our graduate financial services team. We are not the same thing as financial aid. And so within the graduate college here, we only oversee our graduate assistantship program and our own internal scholarships and fellowships. But financial aid that is on main campus oversees undergraduate and graduate FAFSA forms, loan eligibility, Pell Grants and things like that. So if you ever had questions about who is receiving the FAFSA form or what loan eligibility you qualify for, that is the financial aid office. So we are two separate entities, but financial aid does oversee undergrad and grad as well. And then we just oversee, as I was stating before, our GA program and our own internal scholarships and fellowships. And then another form of funding that we have is just external funding. So, a lot of students apply for the Wells Fargo scholarship that's obviously outside of the university. So the best way to connect, and if you are awarded a scholarship externally that is not through UNLV, is making sure that you connect them with the UNLV. I think it's the cashiering office because then they provide the external funding source, all the information needed. Let's say if they want to offer to pay for your tuition, how they're able to do that, or mailing a check specifically to get that applied to your account. So I always suggest to reach out to cashiering as well for any external funding opportunities that you may be eligible for outside of the university. Next slide, please, Jay. Okay, so now the benefits of becoming a GA. So actually last summer we were able to increase the GA stipend for students. And so the minimum, I think there was a little typo there. Sorry about that. So the minimum monthly stipend for master's level students is $1,700 a month. And then for our PhD students, it's $2,200 a month. Typically, GAs are awarded for 2 semesters. And so it really depends on what program you're in. And if you're a master's or PhD level student, that will determine what you qualify for your monthly stipend. We do have it on our website if you look up UNLV GAs, a breakdown of based off of your department and the level of program that you're in, what you would qualify for stipend wise. So we always recommend to students to check on there to see what they would qualify for. GAs also offer tuition coverage up to 9 credits. And I always tell students it's very important to check your offer letter. So once you are offered a GA, it is important to check what tuition coverage is like specifically on your offer letter. Some departments, if you are a state-funded GA, will cover up to 9 credits of just your tuition and not your fees. So you may still be responsible for paying for the fees, like say you enroll in 9 credits. And so making sure you read the fine print. If it says tuition and fees, then they're covering your entire tuition that you enroll in, depending on the amount of credits. Typically, GAs or GA-ships cover 6 credits. That's like the minimum. Some departments cover up to 9 or even 12. It just depends on your program. All GAs also get all in-state tuition. So if you are an out-of-state student, you do get a tuition waiver for that, which can equal up to $16,000 in $16,000 reduction on your tuition. And then we do cover your student health insurance. So typically you have to have a student health insurance applied to your account that you have to pay for, which if you're looking at it for 2 semesters, it can equal up to close to $3,000. So we do pay for that with your GA ship. So that's not something that you have to worry about. And then we also have our summer GA tuition benefit. So if you are a GA that's being appointed for multiple years, for fall and spring, you can qualify for the benefits. So basically, it's a 3 credit tuition waiver that covers just your tuition. You would still have to pay the fees, but that is something that you can request. All you would have to do is just email us and let us know what class you are enrolled in for the summer, and we would apply the waiver to your account. And then we also have a GA loan available. So each semester you can request up to $500. And basically how that works is once you request it, you have to email us specifically saying that you want the form for the GA loan request, and then you fill it out. And we provide you the $500 upfront once you get approved. And then how you work on paying that back is we actually work with just deducting the $500 from your future paychecks, but we do it where it would only be $100 per check that you get deducted. So it's not one big $500 that's being taken away from your paycheck. So that is also an opportunity if you needed the funding for an emergency. We also do offer our emergency retention grant here at the Graduate College that you can apply for if, an extenuating circumstance happens. So I always recommend to students to reach out if you have any questions. We definitely have a lot of resources to help our students in times of like struggle. And then another benefit of becoming a GA is career opportunities. A lot of GAs that work in the departments after they graduate can be offered full-time positions. Just being able to connect and being able to network with other people have definitely led GAs to becoming full-time professionals in the future. And then just community and connection, we host a lot of events here, I know with the Grad Academy, just making sure that GAs can connect and interact with one another in different departments is always helpful because you never know down the line if any opportunity might present itself. If you just even meet someone and, your GA doesn't get renewed for a certain amount of time, you may have met someone that may have known a position available in another department. So that's always something to consider as well. Did we have a question, Jay?
Yes, we did.
Okay, what was the
Uh,
question?
Cameron says, can you have an internship at the same time as being a GA?
So typically, no. Um, Basically, how it works is because the GA has a 20-hour requirement, we don't allow you to have the internship at the same time because that can potentially interfere with the hours of your GA ship. And then something else to note with a GA ship, you can apply for an additional 10 hours of work if you wanted to do that. However, that form does need to be approved by your department and then routed through us for final approval. And it has to be, I believe, correlating to your program and what you're doing. I think with internship, you would have to go above those hours if I'm not mistaken. So I think that's why it's a no. Okay, so some things to consider with GA positions is we typically have an average about 1,000 positions available. And so how that process works is you actually have to go through UNLV Handshake is where a lot of departments are posting any available positions. So here within the Graduate College, we only process the GA ships that are being sent to us from different departments. We don't necessarily take part in the hiring of who they're selecting. So it's very important that if you're looking for a GA-ship specifically within your department, that you are reaching out to that department specifically to see if they have anything available. A lot of times GA-ships could be by word of mouth or someone that's graduating and recommending somebody else that they've met to fill in the position and getting interviewed for that. So I tell students it doesn't hurt to ask. Also, considering if you can't find something within your department, being able to look into non-academic departments. So, GAs get hired by the UNLV gym, the UNLV library. I believe the Barrick Museum hires GAs as well. And so it doesn't hurt to just ask and see if there's anything available, because the benefits of it could really impact your financial future when you're going to grad school. I did want to note and emphasize that it is 20 hours a week, and that is a non-negotiable thing. In terms of your schedule, that is something that is discussed within your department. So depending on what schedule fits best for you and your classes and what their needs are, that would have to be arranged with you and your supervisor for your GA. And then when you are offered a GA-ship, it is something to consider that because you are getting waivers and tuition coverage, that it may impact the loan eligibility that you qualify for. So you may qualify for less. So we do like to emphasize that to students. And then, like I was stating before, here at the bottom, if GA positions are not available in your program, check with Career Services that oversees Handshake. You can even ask us. We have students emailing us all the time to see if we have anything available at the grad college, and look in Grad Gateway where you would be applying originally for your GA-ship. Next slide, please. Okay, and then I kind of wanted just to include screenshots of our scholarship and fellowships. So when you look up UNLV Graduate College fellowships and scholarships, you will be directed to a portal that looks like this that has you log into Grad Gateway. We do have drop downs that include just general information and guidelines, required application materials. Majority of our scholarships and fellowships have similar required application materials. However, some of them may be a little specific, saying, this award is only for a PhD student in sociology. So we always tell students to take a look, but primarily the requirements include letters of recommendation, CVs, resumes, and then I think CVs, resumes, letters of recommendation, your transcripts, because there is a GPA requirement. And I always emphasize this throughout all my presentations is if you are listing a letter of recommendation, or a recommender, I should say, please make sure you're staying in touch with your recommender. I have had a lot of recommenders reach out saying, I haven't talked to this student in years, or I don't even know who this person is. And so I always recommend you keep in touch with your recommender. And they're letting you know if they've submitted it. So once you list them on your application, they do get an automated email giving them instructions on what they need to do in order to submit their letter for you. And so just keeping tabs, because I think in the past 2 or 3 years, we've had over 200 to 300 students not qualify for our scholarships or fellowships because their letters of recommendation were not submitted at all. And so we always tell students that if for whatever reason you submit your application, your recommender can't write the letter for you anymore, you need to have enough time to be able to submit and send us in a new person, and then we can always add them to your application and send them the generated email for them to submit a letter for you. But we just like to emphasize that because a lot of students miss out on that opportunity without getting that letter in on time. This tab specifically shows new student grad college scholarships and fellowships. This one is going to be for current students. So as you can see, we have a lot of available scholarships and fellowships open to everybody. So even now, I would suggest going in and doing your research on what you would think would benefit you the best. And just getting your application materials ready on time. So, like I said, with our portal opening on October 1st and closing on December 1st, we give a little bit of a grace period if you have your application submitted during that time frame until December 15th, but that's only for if you submitted your application within that timeline and your recommender has not submitted their letter yet. So we give you an additional 2 weeks for a final push to see if your recommender can send their letter in for you. But like I said, you do have to have your application submitted in by then in order to qualify for that. The next slide. And then in general, just planning ahead, we like to include some resources of some articles that can help, or like how I paid off my student loans, creating a budget, paying for college. And so we like to have these for you all available, just so you all can access in the future. But we're obviously like here to help. But the main resources that we have is what I was listing before. And I think if you go next slide, Jay, let's see. That is all I had. These are the resources just linked individually. And then I think we have one more page of resources and then one more, and I think it's questions. Perfect. Yeah, so that is all I had for you all today. Does anybody have any questions about graduate assistantships or scholarship and fellowship funding, anything like that? Great question, Luis. So, does a fellowship entail anything different from a scholarship? So, it does. Scholarship is basically a one-time funding amount that you receive. A fellowship is primarily for PhD students. So, it's basically when you're reaching your last year of your PhD program, when you're working on your dissertation. The difference or the similarities between a fellowship and a GA-ship is with a GA-ship, you get a stipend, and with a fellowship, you would be getting a stipend as well. But the difference is that you wouldn't have to work the 20 hours a week. So the fellowship specifically is for 2 semesters, and you're basically getting this allotted money for you to just focus on finishing your dissertation, traveling to conferences, finishing up any research that you're needed while not having to work. So you also do get your tuition waiver, you get a stipend, you get basically the same things of like a non-resident waiver. And so that's the only difference, but you don't have to work so you can focus on finishing your dissertation. When is the absolute last day to submit a grad school application? Okay, I don't, that is more of an admissions question. I don't know if anybody else knows the answer to that. It depends on your program. So I know if you, for example, if you're like in the couple and family therapy program and you're applying for fall 25, their application deadline was in January. Some programs like to admit during the summer term, and so it just depends on the deadline. I would look up the specific program you're interested in and see when their deadlines are.
And you'll likely be able to find that information if you type a similar question like that into UNLV's search.
Okay, would you happen to know of any GA ships available for clinical mental health counseling for a department that's somewhat related to your pro? Yes. I don't know if there's any GA ships available for the clinical mental health counseling. However, I do recommend to either talk to, I think the director is Dr. Stephen Benning. I think he would know if there's any available positions. And you are able to do a GA ship that's like somewhat related. I know with the couple and family therapy program, they have a couple positions available throughout the year. And so you can definitely do it. Like, it doesn't have to be specific, but if you wanted it to be correlated, you can definitely apply for a CFTGA ship as well. Was there another question? Do we apply for a GA a year ahead or a semester? I say the earlier the better. So typically, if you find out you were admitted into a program, let's say like this week, I would suggest you start looking for GA ships now. So typically during the spring semester is the prime time that departments are appointing GA ships for fall and spring. And so definitely don't wait until the month before school starts. Like, I don't recommend people doing that. So right now, if you're looking to start in the fall 2025 semester, this is the prime time to be looking at available positions, either within your department or other departments as well. Uh, is there anything we can do in undergrad to make ourselves more competitive for a GA in grad school? That's a great question. So I would recommend depending on what you're doing, your background in your undergrad, like say you're a part of a lab, I always think it's important to network because it may be that your lab instructor could potentially be offered GA-ships if you're considering going into a grad program in the same related field. So I would definitely say networking with people and meet like looking to see what kind of field you would be interested in and starting that in undergrad now to see if that would correlate to any future GA ships. And you can even ask departments too. I mean, departments know what a GA ship is. So even in undergrad, you can ask them if there's anything available. Like if you did consider to go to grad school, a lot of departments only admit as many students as they have GA ships for. Not all departments do that, but that is a perk to consider. Just being able to ask ahead of time and seeing if they could even point you in the direction of knowing if a position would be available the following year that you're applying for grad school. Yes, so by asking the department, do you mean emailing the graduate coordinator? Or would that be someone else? Yes, I always recommend emailing the graduate coordinator will always be the main point of contact for every department. And you can literally just look up like UNLV, let's say clinical mental health counseling graduate coordinator, and usually their information will come up, and that's how you can email them specifically, or you can either call their main like front office line. You'll typically speak to administrative assistant and they can provide you an email that you can reach out to if you're inquiring about graduate assistantships. Where can I find scholarships for business students? So we have one through the grad college for the Lee Business School that we just started out this past year that you can look into. For business specific scholarship, I would either look into the Lee Business School in general to see if they have any departmental scholarships there. Yes, so applying for scholarships here. So there's the Lee Business School scholarship that we have through the grad college. And then let's see. I don't see any other on their website, but I would definitely ask to see if there's anything else available. Or you can also look externally as well to see, I think it's like scholarships.edu or scholarships. Let's see. There's a portal that you can look up external scholarships from, and you can look up specifically for business. Um, yeah, so I would definitely look up just different scholarship websites that could point you to individual external scholarships as well. So, Luis, for clarification, we look for GAs on Handshake or through general networking with people who may offer them. So both. Um, a lot of departments will post available positions on UNLV Handshake, or you can network with other people that may offer them. I mean, even a lot of our GAs today found out their GA ships through like knowing someone, for example, here at the grad college or knowing someone in a different department. So it doesn't hurt to ask. With either. So, but some departments will be a lot more formal if they're looking for very specific, like let's say research GA experience, where they'll post they're looking for a research GA with these qualifications, and that is typically done through Handshake. So, when it comes to hiring, it's all very formal in general. And so even with teaching GAs, it's going to be pretty similar to a research. So let's say for teaching GAs, they might be looking for someone that in undergrad took a specific class because that's the class they are looking a GA to teach as a grad level student. And so I think it just depends not all hiring looks the same, but typically with a lot of GA hirings, it is pretty standard where you're either going to get selected for an interview to do like a virtual interview with the supervisor that is looking to hire, or if there's specific research or teaching experience that they may be looking for in your resume. I think it just depends on the department, but typically it's pretty much the same where you just get an interview through virtual or phone. Um, that was pretty much similar for you, Jay, right? It was a virtual interview.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, it
Okay.
was.
Yeah. Are teaching workshops like this part of a GA or is it something separate? Um, like, do you mean like me presenting? Would that be a part of a GA ship duty or? Sorry, I think just need a little more clarification on your question. Yeah, so a GA wouldn't be doing presentations like this. This is mostly for like coordinators and stuff that are doing like the hiring for GAs, I think is what you're asking. Um, GA duties can look very differently depending on the GA. So if you're teaching, that would be you're preparing like lecture, like slides, administrative. So what Jay's doing right here is he's a part of the Grad Academy. So he's helping with the, what's the word, Jay? Like hosting or,
Yeah, the
yeah.
hosting the Zoom, just like assisting with like your facilitation or your presentation.
Exactly. So he's just helping with like the recording, any logistical work, but he's not the one giving the specific presentation. Like they get people to do this that are already in the field, like working full time as a part of their job. And then the same thing for research, if you're collecting data to give back to a professor for their grant, that would be something separate that you're doing on the side. So it just depends specifically on your responsibilities.
Gonna paste this link a little early just to catch you guys before you leave. Please fill that out for us if you can. It's like a end of the workshop survey, like feedback. But otherwise, before we end today's workshop, we would like to thank our presenters, Christy,
Mhm.
for sharing their time and expertise with us, and to thank our participants for joining us today. Before you guys log off, please take a few minutes to fill out that survey link that I sent or dropped in the chat for you guys. But otherwise, I hope everyone has a great rest of their day. And thank you for joining.